Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Eric Abelos, and this morning, we are going to talk about the wildfires that are happening all around us. And there is no one better to talk about wildfires than Mo. Mo, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. Thanks, Eric.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me on air this morning. Who are you? What's your position? What's your title?
So my name is Mo DeMorat. I'm the Emergency Operations Director, which includes the Office of Emergency Management for Routt County. And obviously, my role here is to try to make the county as prepared as possible to respond to large-scale emergencies and include our partners throughout the county in responding to those emergencies.
What shoes to fill? Wow. So let me ask you this: we got a wildfire that's going on not too far from us in a couple different locations, not too far from us. What is the status of these fires? Let's start with the Middle Fork.
Well, the Middle Fork fire, as of this morning, it's a little over 20,000 acres. Just actually broke 20,000 acres this morning. It's located primarily in the Mount Circle Wilderness. Right now, we consider it or we classify it as smoldering and creeping. It's not a running fire at this point. Some of the moisture we got last weekend helped with that, but it is still growing in several hot spots. The fire was started September 6th by lightning. Then we brought in an incident management team to help us, try to limit this fire and to the extent that it's going to grow.
God, I did not know it was started on September 6th. September 6th is my birthday, so that's kind of a that's not great. You know what? Why is Colorado experiencing so many wildfires this year? Is
Well,
it more than normal?
it is the fact that we've gone so late in the season is, I would say, somewhat abnormal. Although, unfortunately, it seems like it's becoming the normal. But a lot of that's just due to the amount of heavy dead and down fuel loading caused by the mountain pine beetle epidemic, as well as extreme drought conditions that we've been under. So it is unusual to have it this late in the region, this late throughout our region. But unfortunately, that may be becoming the new normal just due to the high concentration of fuel.
How how many firefighters are going out there? I see helicopters every day carrying water and dumping it. How many team members are tackling this fire?
We've been averaging about 136 personnel working the fire from all over the United States, and that's gone up and down because, as you mentioned, we have numerous fires out there that are in fairly close proximity. We have the Cameron Peak fire, the Mullen fire from Wyoming. We've had some new outbreaks there by Boulder. A lot of times we'll be moving firefighters and resources from one to another as the priorities from change throughout the fires. I'm glad you brought up the helicopters, and I'd like to make a point that this fire has been operating in the wilderness, and there's I think a perception sometime that we're not doing anything, we're letting it burn, and nothing could be really further from the truth. We're not letting it burn, but just unfortunately within the wilderness, the terrain is so rugged. We don't have access roads for crews to get there. A lot of times we're taking UTVs and side by sides to get there. So aviation has been our primary resource used to suppress the fire and limit its growth. So a lot of it's a safety perspective. If we put firefighters up there in some of the wilderness and with the poor access, should someone get hurt, could take a long time to try to get that person out and to get medical care. So we are working on the fire with indirect lines and but primarily using those aviation resources you talked about.
I think it'd be crazy for anybody to think that you guys weren't doing anything. I mean, if you live in Steamboat at all, you see the helicopter going all the time. And I'm glad this fire, well, not glad, but I'm glad this fire was started by lightning and not like a gender reveal party. That's
Well,
so sad.
that's an important point too. As you know, we are in stage two fire restrictions, which is no fires at all, other than
Yeah.
small fires that they can use with liquid type of petroleum. But this weekend, not in Routt County, but in some of our neighboring counties, we had three starts that were human caused. Obviously, we're looking at trying to beef up our enforcement efforts for the stage two. But if this continues, the next step would be stage three, which is a closure of the forest and properties that people go hunting on.
The other day, I exited my front door. I looked to my right, and I could see flames above the mountain. Now that seems really scary and close. Am I or any steamboatian at risk of like evacuation? When would that happen, or what does that
Sure.
look like?
Well, first of all, it's really hard to determine distance when you get into the terrain. What looks like maybe just on top of the ridge, ready to bear down on you. In reality, was actually when he had those big plumes, still about 3 miles away. So it is very deceiving. But nevertheless, we are concerned. We do an assessment of the values at risk, and for the Middle Fork fire, the closest or the biggest values at risk or closest values at risk that we were watching included, the communities down south around Hot Springs and around there. We also had some communities up off Seed House Road on the northern perimeter. And then we're always concerned about our Fish Creek watershed. So those were the areas we're primarily looking at. What we end up doing is we look at the terrain models, we look at the fuel types, and we put down what they call management action points or maps on a chart. And so, should the fire breach one of those management action points, then some action will normally be taken. So, we look at the rate of spread that we could expect down to the south, for example, and then we draw a management action point so that should the fire progress and breach that line, then we got to start perhaps doing pre-evac, or at least make it's at that point where decision is required of what we need to do. So we do have those plotted on a map to help us determine when those type of decisions need to be made.
And how close are we to these? How close is the fire to these points? Is it
Um, well, the I would say the for example down south, the perimeter is less than a mile from that management action point. However, the good news is it has also not progressed in that direction over the past week. And then that management action point is probably, I'd say, somewhere around at least 2 miles from the nearest residence. So it has not breached. There are no communities are in any kind of evac or even pre-evacuation notice. We have those points identified, and we have not breached them yet, nor has it progressed in those directions in the last week.
what can we do as residents to help build like a resilience towards wildfires and preventing wildfires? I mean, this one started by a lightning strike. Is there anything that we could do, or is it just this stuff happens?
Well, there are some things you can do, but before I address specific things that they can do for wildfires, I like to tell people the most important action we ask them to take is to register for RouttCountyAlerts.com. My most important task and my biggest concern is to be able to alert residents and guests that they may be exposed to a hazard and have them take the necessary action in a timely manner to best ensure their safety. We've had to do this for wildfire evacuations, hazardous material accidents requiring evacuations, boil water alerts, 911 outages. But if we can't reach you, we can't alert you. So we ask people to go to RouttCountyAlerts.com and register. And also make sure that you include an address, or you can include multiple addresses if you have spent a lot of time at a business or family member's house. And also, when you're registering for the Routt County Alerts, there's also a page in there where you can indicate if you have any kind of access or functional need.
And if we need any more up to date, if somebody's at home watching this and they're like, what's going on with that fire today? Where can they go to find out that information?
I would say the most timely method is the Routt County Office of Emergency Management Facebook page, as well as our emergency management page and Routt County website. There's one other website they can go to, and we asking people to have, home emergency kits, have their own evacuation plans and communication plans with their family members. And if you go to ready.gov, that's a great source of information for all those emergency preparedness activities that families can do.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm sure you're exhausted from fighting this fire and getting everything organized and running the crew here. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join me on air today.
Well, thanks you. Thank you for having me, Eric. This this information is important. So we want to make sure that it's prepared should a disaster get to the point where requires whether it be evacuation or sheltering or whatnot. One last thing I would like to say is that we do have a we have established a community emergency response team capability. That's a CERT, and that is basically a team of volunteers that we provide a 2-week training course to include topics such as first aid and incident command. And we use those volunteers should we have a large emergency, such as something requiring evacuation. They can manage a evacuation center, assist the Red Cross in managing shelters. We were going to have another class this year, but had to cancel it for COVID. But we do plan on having another course in the spring of 2021. And so having those volunteers available to assist our first responders is a great capability. So if they're looking to donate not so much materials or money, but their time, we'd love to have them on that CERT team.
That's awesome. Well, we will get that information out to you guys as soon as we can. Thank you again, Mo, so much.
Thank you, Eric.